Hi, in this lesson, I suggest making some of our env variables optional. In particular, I want to make the Brevo API key optional for passing. Why would this be needed? Suppose you're working with someone on a team and you don't want to give them access to your Brevo key, but the project should still run on their end. So, I want to make this API key optional. Accordingly, if this API key isn't provided, I still don't want the code to break. If this API key isn't provided, I want Brevo requests to simply not be sent, but for the code to still run and log appropriately, allowing development to continue by simulating sending emails, to view all email information in the logs without sending unnecessary emails. Here's our task. So let's get started. First, let's open the env file and fix it. First, let's add this repeated entry into a variable. Here's the non-empty trimmed, and replace all occurrences with it. All right. So we haven't done anything new here, just removed code duplication. Now let's add another variable that will do the following. It's exactly the same, but this string will only be in a non-local environment. Because of this, we'll also introduce host env, which will be an enum, meaning one of the specified strings. Cutting now. Enum. Let's assume we have two environments. We definitely have a local right now. We're developing locally, so the host environment is local. Later, we will have production. Once we deploy to the server, it will be production. There's also fundamentally Node.env, but it's a different thing. Node.env is the environment for Node. It can be development, production, or test. This means specifically where our application is running. Locally in production, ideally, you can add other environments. For example, we might have a dev server, stage server, or some other kind. But for now, only local and production. In the variable Brevo APK should be optional locally, but if we're not in the local environment, it must be mandatory, and the project shouldn't work without it. We do this with the following code. We specify that this is a variable. This is actually ideally an empty string, but it's optional. However, we add refine. We've already done super refine once. Refine is redefining a rule for one specific element, and here it drops out val. Val is a value stored, in this case, for example, in Brevo APK. And we say that if we have process env, host env, we take it specifically from process env, because we don't have access to other envs from this variable. And therefore, here, as an exception, we access process env directly. So, if we have process env host local, then in any case, well, true will return, meaning there's no error. But if it's not a local environment, but production, for example, then the value must be specified. If the value is not specified, and we are not in a local environment, then an error must be thrown. Required on local host. Thus, Brevo APK has become optional. Now let's prepare our code for this by adding this parameter here in make request to Brevo. If we don't have Brevo APA, as you can see, it is now string or undefined. It used to be mandatory string. We won't throw an error. We'll return a mocked loggable response. We'll say 200, okay, and to avoid surprising the developer why they aren't getting a real email, we'll still pass Brevo APA is not set in the message. All right. It's complaining because we haven't set the host env. Let's add it to both env and env example. Our host env is local. And here in env example, host env, well, also local. Let's note this for our other developers. Okay, saving it. The backend is running. Well, let's hide our Brevo APK and see. What? You can add a hash like this, and it will be hidden. We've commented it out. Okay, let's go register. So, sign up, email. Let's say aiaexample.com. Username, A, password, 1234, 1234. Sign up, checking the logs. We see logs occurred, but we see the message Brevo APK not installed. Otherwise, everything seems normal. Email seems to be sent. Good. Now let's uncomment this line and see if the email really sends. So, log out, sign up, username B at example.com, 1234, 1234. Sign up. So, we already see that, judging by the logs, it was an actual send to Brevo, and we received this response. Good. Now, let's check. What if? If we didn't specify Brevo APK, but the host env was, for example, production, we'd get a warning. We update the server, and immediately they tell us Brevo APK is not specified, and it is required in non-local host environment. Back to local, and we are allowed to do so. Here we can have this variable or not have it. Great. Thus, we made it optional. Thanks to all. Let's move on.